Hello, Minecrafters and Redstoners. I'm Natanus Likens, and today we are performing a little bit of an experiment. So, one of the YouTubers that I follow has made a very interesting Piglin Bartering System in the Nether. Uh, this is not it. This is just my attempt at experimenting with the issue that these this particular farm has. So let's talk about what's going on here. So as you can see, we have a rail system set up, and on these corners here, the detector rail is going to dispense a piece of gold for this piglin right here, who's already in a minecart, and it's going to make him drop off an item. So immediately after he gets his piece of gold, he's going to come over to these corners, drop off here, and then drop his item. Now, when I initially set this up and determined where about he would drop his item, it was on these spots here. So right here and over there is roughly where he should have been dropping off his items. That was about 6 seconds. Now, upon actually activating this and seeing what happens, it turns out that he's actually dropping them off roughly in this vicinity. So right here where this white concrete block is, and right there where that white concrete block is. This is kind of telling in a couple of different ways. One, we can definitely see that this is accelerating him. Of course it needs to, because we're trying to drop him off. We're trying to at least replicate the fact that he is up in the air somewhere where he should be dropping off his items. But that's not exactly what's happening. What I think is going on is the time it takes for him to get his gold ingot and then drop his item is not exactly 6 seconds. And what I mean by that is by the by the time the game registers that he's picked up a gold ingot to the point where he drops it is not always exactly the same. And what I mean by that is if we go over here and activate this, you'll see that it kind of varies a little bit. So the game is not exactly showing where when he's dropping it off. So listen on our hitboxes. We're going to float down here a little bit. And notice too that he tends to want to drop the items on the rails. Okay, so see this one landed there and this one dropped off there. So again, my guess is that he's not it's not registering exactly where we think 6 seconds would start as far as when he gets the item and then when he's going to drop it off. See, that one fell a little bit in front, but it also is due to the nature that the randomness of where he is going to throw the item. But as you can see, he's dropping them on the rails there. So we're going to come over here and we're going to deactivate this for a second. Wait for him to come back around. Because I have discovered a few things doing some tests here. And mostly it involves the player in this setup. Okay, so one of the there's three possibilities for the piglin to drop off items. One of those is that they try to throw it to the player. Another one is that they will throw it to a spot that they can pathfind to. And the third one is that there's nowhere to throw it, they're just going to drop it. And, you know, judging by what you see here, you would assume that it is the last one where there's no spot. He's just gonna drop it right there. But if we make this little setup here as a possible, he can pathfind to it, things get interesting. Well, sort of. You'll see. So we're going to activate this again and then fly up. And here it comes. And oh, it's falling on the rails again. We'll let him go a couple of times and just to display this. Now that one went to the path we have set up there. This one went to the rails again. And that one went on the rails again. So the point is that apparently when he's throwing it onto the rails, even without these platforms here, I don't think he's not detecting a spot and dropping it. I think he's trying to pathfind to where the rails are. I actually ran this for a lot longer last night, and it stayed pretty consistent with either he's going to throw it onto this path or he's going to throw it onto the rails. It was pretty consistent. Like, either it was going to end up there or it was going to end up like over in this corner. Let's clean up this mess so that we can demonstrate this. So while I was messing around with it, I got the thought in my head, like, it doesn't seem to matter if you build a specific spot for him to throw it or not. And one of the things I tested is I covered, well, not covered, but I encased these little platforms in glass, and he wouldn't throw it onto these platforms at that point. It just kept landing on the rails. So somewhere in here is where the AI decides where it's going to throw it, even though over here is roughly about where they end up throwing it. So with this covered in glass, he was not throwing it on these platforms at all, which is very interesting and very odd. So I tore down the glass and decided to do one more test, and then I discovered that we were getting a very consistent place of where he is actually wanting to throw the items. So if we put the redstone there, we're going to activate, we're going to break the button. Let's get a new button. Okay, so he's on his way. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to sit on this block. You probably could guess why this block was here from the beginning. So watch what happens. Okay, so it's on that platform now. On the platform. On the platform. On the platform. I think you are starting to see what I'm getting at here. On the platform. The only way I can consistently get this guy to drop any of his items relatively close to an item pickup system is if he's got line of sight on me. I've tried several different things, and this is honestly the most consistent that I can get. Let's turn off hitboxes and turn off that alarm. But yeah, so I'm afraid you're gonna have to set up an AFK spot that is going to be seeable by the piglins in your system. Now, granted, mine is horizontal, whereas the system we are talking about is vertical, but I mean, there's no denying that being within line of sight of the piglins is the only way to consistently get them to drop something somewhere. And we'll let these items build up a little bit longer just to demonstrate that. Notice they're not landing on the rails. Occasionally they do throw them in such a way that they fall off of these platforms, but for the most part, this is the most consistent way I have found to get them to throw something specifically where you want it, or within a general direction of where you want it. Otherwise, yeah, they make a mess of items everywhere. So, yeah, yeah, a little bit of experiment, and it looks like you're gonna have to build an AFK spot that they can all see. I don't know if that's gonna be possible with your setup, but yeah. So there you go, and that's all I got for you. This is just a fun little experiment I've set up, and hope it helps.